Hi everyone, this is Dr. Victoria Nelule. So in this video, it's going to be a very short video, and the question is, should social license operate in the extractive industries? Should it be written or should it remain unwritten? So this is a question that I often get, especially from stakeholders and companies when I'm doing trainings on social license to operate. So what is a social license to operate? It's an acceptance from the society or communities for the various extractive projects or even projects that are not in the extractive industries to keep operating in their communities or in their areas. So a social license to operate is different from a legal license because first it's unwritten, and then secondly it's not given by the government but rather it's given by the communities themselves, and it can be withdrawn at any time. So those are the main three characteristics of the social license to operate. It's given by the communities, it's unwritten, it can be withdrawn anytime. It can be given or even withdrawn anytime. So how is it different from a legal license? With a legal license, especially now if you're carrying out if you're in the extractive industries, the mining sector, oil and gas, you need a license from the government to be able to explore, develop, and also exploit the resources. So you need a written license, and this has a basis from the various laws and policies and regulations in the extractive industries. You would find in the mining law or in the mining regulations, they'll talk about the license. You'll find in the petroleum laws, they'll talk about the license. That is the legal license you need to get from the government to be able to explore, exploit, and also develop the resources. But however, for social license to operate, it doesn't have any basis from the law. It's more of societal acceptance of your activities. And given the fact that extractive industries or extractive projects are often for a very long term, they can take like 30 years, 40 years, 20 years. So the question now arises, should the social license operate be written or should it stay unwritten? Because in these 30 years you're operating, if it's a mining company, and after 10 years, let's say the societies have given you a social license to operate in the first year of operation, and then after like 5 years, they realize that you know what, the environmental impacts of these activities to our society, they are not acceptable. So they can decide to withdraw that social license to operate. In sense, they no longer support your projects in their communities. That's how they withdraw. And it can be very disturbing, especially for the companies, because once the social license to operate is withdrawn, then you will see some communities can protest, they can attack your projects. So in the end, it's a loss. It leads to losses for the extractive companies. So they might ask themselves, since they've already given us the social license to operate in the first 5 years, why are they withdrawing it? And in that aspect, some companies will be like, is there a way we can have a written approval or written evidence that we got this social license to operate at the beginning of the project? So that question really differs on where you stand and whom you want to support. And if it's for the local communities, then it's better for the social license to operate, not for it to not be written, to remain unwritten, because at any time they can withdraw it. And if it's for the companies, it might also be good for them to have evidence that, you know what, at the beginning of the project, we carried out some activities that were meant to develop the local communities, like infrastructure development, schools, hospitals. That is something they can show. So for the companies or people representing companies, they would be of the view that, you know what, maybe it should be written so that it cannot be withdrawn anytime. But by its nature, it should be unwritten because the extractive industries are associated with various environmental and social impacts. And some of these impacts are not visible in the first 10 years or in the first 5 years. So it's always good for the communities to keep reviewing the activities of these companies to analyze, do they comply with the environmental protection principles? Are our societies benefiting from these activities, or are the companies just doing it to benefit themselves? So, in my opinion, the answer really depends on where you stand and what arguments you want to give. But I think, given the long term nature of the extractive industries and the environmental impacts, it's always good to ensure that the social license to operate remains unwritten, and communities have that power to ensure that they can withdraw it at any time. In that way, companies will always be on the guard to do the right thing in those communities. We have seen examples in the Niger Delta where the communities were aware of the view that they no longer want oil and gas projects to be carried out in their communities. That is withdrawing your social license to operate, because initially the developments were taking place, but now some communities are like, no, we don't want anything to do with the industries because of the environmental impacts we have suffered due to these resources. So that's an example of how the social license to operate can be given and then withdrawn after some time. So I would like to hear your views, because at the end of the day, really, I want to hear your opinions. Do you think that social license to operate should remain written? I mean, should remain unwritten, or should we write it? And if we are to write it, what form should it take? Please participate and let me know your views in the comment section so that we can have another session of, if it's to be written, what form should it take as a written social license to operate. So that's the end of the video. Do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Victoria Nalule. For consultancies, involve us at Nalule Energy and Mining Consultants, that is NAME Energy. Any work with respect to climate change, oil, gas, energy transitions, the mining sector, involve us, capacity building trainings, all that we do. All right. Thank you very much and have a lovely day. Bye bye.